LA's got a crime-infested, meth-infested, homeless-infested criminal war zone run by gangs known as MacArthur Park. But the mayor of LA and the governor of California, they know who the real enemy is. Federal law enforcement trying to clean the place up. We're going to give you all the details and maybe some residual benefits of the latest ICE actions in LA. That's coming up in a moment. Also, did you hear all of this talk about Trump maybe flirting with the idea of a mass amnesty for illegal immigrants? What's that all about? It appears as though it's not happening. Was it ever happening? We'll try to get to the bottom of it and the truth about foreign workers picking your crops here in America. We'll get to that. And also, Zohran Mamdani, it appears as though his radical communist ideas are the least radical thing about him. Wait till you see one of the people identified as an intern on his campaign and the way she behaves with New York police officers. It's horrific. That's all coming up and a whole lot more. We are as professional as a Hakeem Jeffries Photoshop job. And we're brought to you by Birch Gold. My name's Larry O'Connor, and you can call me Larry. They just bent that park bench to make him look slimmer, right? We were giving Eric Swalwell a hard time about his man boobs yesterday. Hakeem is pretty sensitive about this. Body shame him. He needs to stop taking pictures in front of things that are like linear, like brick walls and fences and park benches. It's like, stand in front of the shrubs. You won't be able to tell that it's all photoshopped, Hakeem. Pro tip there. You're welcome. The administration has their sleeves rolled up in streamlining monumental moves right now, but it's difficult for them to take your personal finances into account when trying to do what's right for the country. You've got to do that, and that's why tens of thousands of Americans are buying gold right now from Birch Gold. In the past 12 months, the value of gold has increased 40%. How's that measure up to your investments? Some central banks bolster demand for gold by buying it in record quantities, and global instability and tension are among the highest in decades. But you may be able to find peace of gold in these times with, did I say piece of gold? I meant peace of mind. With gold, with a piece of gold. Birch Gold makes it extremely easy to convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in physical gold. Just buy some to store at home. Text my name, Larry, to 989898. Birch Gold's going to send you a free info kit on gold. No obligation, just useful information. They got an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau, tens of thousands of happy customers, positive reviews online. Research it for yourself, but it's time for you to take control of your savings. Text my name, Larry, Larry, to 989898. Do that today. Yesterday, downtown Los Angeles, this was the scene in MacArthur Park. Not a park you want to leave your cake out in the rain, by the way. This park is just west of downtown Los Angeles. It's in the Central Corridor. Every several years, the city of LA or the county of LA pump millions of dollars into trying to clean the park up, renovate it, new waterfront, all this jazz to make it a place for families and children to go and enjoy themselves. And within a week of the big ribbon cutting and the grand reopening after millions of tax dollars, it's overrun by gangs, by homeless, criminal vagrants, drug dealers, even prostitution taking place right there in MacArthur Park. Well, federal law enforcement officers, ICE, they set up a sweep to try to clear the park out. And, well, Karen Bass was sitting in her office in City Hall. She saw this on TV, and she had to hop in her secure motorcade and head straight down there. Because, hey, that's her meth-infested park, damn it. You feds, you get the hell out. She likes it just the way it is. They don't even call it MacArthur Park in LA anymore. They call it Metharthur Park. It's not easy to say. Sound like Sylvester the Cat from Warner Brothers. Here's the mayor jumping into action there yesterday.
So I am going to say,
Mayor Bass, I need to get my phone with the party.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mayor Bass.
Mayor Bass.
Oh my
Any
God.
comment, Mayor Bass?
Thank you.
Mayor Bass, any comment?
Yes, my comment is they need to leave, and they need to leave right now. They need to leave because this is unacceptable.
Who did you speak with?
Just wait and see.
Mayor Bass,
They will be leaving soon.
Mayor, who did you speak with on the phone just now? Who did you speak with on the phone?
The head of customs.
Wow.
The head of customs. I think she means the head of ICE, but I don't think it was actually the head of ICE. I'm not sure who she talked to. I do like the Tiffany blue. That's a good color on her. Don't you wish you were this outraged and upset, screaming, they have to leave and they have to leave right now, about the gang members, about the meth dealers, about the meth addicts, about the people who are leaving used hypodermic needles on the grass where your children are trying to play? Or how about the criminal vagrants who have taken up shop and living there, running their prostitution rings out of tents in the park? That's Karen Bass's LA. That's Karen Bass's Meth Arthur Park. She doesn't care about them. Nope. She gets exercise. She goes down to MacArthur Park to yell at law enforcement. I think this may be the first time she's been there since her big ribbon cutting ceremony announcing the brand new renovated park that got ruined immediately. Later on, remember that, by the way, she just said they have to leave, and you just watch. They'll be leaving soon. Remember that. We'll circle back to it in a second. She went back to City Hall, and then she had a formal press conference. She had plenty to say.
Frankly, it is outrageous and un-American that we have federal armed vehicles in our parks when nothing is going on in the parks. It's outrageous and un-American that the federal government seized our state's National Guard. It's outrageous and un-American that we have U.S. Marines who are trained to kill foreign soldiers overseas deployed in our American city.
It's un-American for federal law enforcement to do their job, the job that she won't do. By the way, see the dude standing behind her there? This is supposed to be her staff or the people who work for her and support her. See the hat he's wearing? Chirla. Remember, we told you about them. Chirla. That's the Soros-funded nonprofit who's supposed to be there for immigration humanitarian services, and they financed all the riots that burned cars and looted stores back when ICE began some of their activities just a few weeks ago. They also received over $30 million in taxpayer-funded support, your dollars paying for Chirla. And there he is handling his mayor. After all, she's bought and paid for. Chirla's got to protect their investment. Later on in the press conference, she took some questions. By the way, what's with the smile? Did she remind you of the Joker? It's a weird thing going on there. I don't know if it's cheek implants or what, but it's a problem. As she talks about how fearless they are and how courageous they are to stand up to ICE officials and law enforcement, just pay close attention to the multiple people standing behind her who are so fearless and so courageous that they're wearing paper masks over their faces lest they inhale oxygen because they're terrified of catching a virus. Either that or they're trying to conceal their identity. Either way, not really the picture of confidence and courage, is it?
Well, I call it a political stunt. If you want to call it a dog and pony show, go right ahead. Same thing.
With this going on for more than a month now, are you starting to feel like you're not even in control of the situation, or is there a feeling of helplessness?
No, I will never feel helpless, and I don't think anybody here feels helpless. That's not in our DNA. We're going to continue fighting.
Mayor Bass, he's calling for you to get used to it. What is your...
I'm not going to get used to it. I'm not going to get used to it because last I checked, I was elected to be mayor of the city. That did not include a federal takeover. So either you believe in democracy or you don't.
Yeah, ma'am, this is not a federal takeover. Be careful what you wish for. You either believe in democracy or you don't. We do believe in democracy. That's the process we use to choose our elected leaders and our representatives. We just did it in November. And we, through the Electoral College, chose our chief executive who ran on the exact promise to do exactly what he's doing right now, which is to enforce federal immigration law, especially in cities that claim an unconstitutional illegal sanctuary status. Yes, we do believe in democracy. This, if I may say, is what democracy looks like. So that's LA Mayor Karen Bass, across town, the drama queen governor of California, Gavin Newsom, before he left town to go campaign as he is today in South Carolina, because, well, really, let's face it, he's done everything he can do in California. He's got to find new states or maybe even an entire country to destroy. He was fighting back the tears in his press conference.
It's a day like today. I want folks to know we have your back, and we'll continue to come back and do what we can to protect our diverse communities, to protect the spirit that defines the best of this city and our state, and to push back against this cruelty, that is being perpetuated by the President of the United States.
Cruelty. It's cruelty to get rid of all of those criminals who have a rightful place in MacArthur Park. After all, you paid for it, taxpayers of California and Los Angeles. He went on to chastise President Trump for utilizing ICE officers, National Guardsmen as props for his political purposes. He said that while he was using members of the Los Angeles Police Department as props for his political purposes. What a guy. You know, it's kind of fascinating here to watch Democrats who have created a culture in this country where the federal government gets to utilize their big boot to stomp all over local jurisdictions, states' rights, states' jurisdictions, local city jurisdictions. When it's Barack Obama dictating to your state and your city what they must do at the granular level of the curriculum in your schools, they love it. They applaud it. They cheer it. They think it's the greatest thing ever. We got to have federal control over our curriculum and over policies in our local school system. Screw the school board. Screw the state board of education. We need the feds to come in. They celebrate the big, powerful jackboot of the federal government every time it tramples on your local rights or your state rights. But here we've got the federal government actually exercising their constitutional responsibility. Only the federal government can enforce immigration laws. Only the federal government can apprehend someone and deport them. So this is literally the only job they can do. And suddenly they all love states' rights. Suddenly they all love local empowerment and being free of the federal government coming in and daring to trample on the way they want to run things in their local government. It's pretty remarkable, and they're going to learn a very valuable constitutional lesson about federal supremacy and who really does have the right to enforce federal laws. Spoiler alert, it's not Karen Bass or Gavin Newsom. Now, you remember when Karen Bass picked up the phone, actually borrowed an ICE agent's phone, I think it was a Border Patrol agent's phone, to call the boss. And she said, I was on the phone with the head of customs, and you'll see, they'll be gone. They'll be out of here. I believe it was this guy she was talking to. This is the local leader of the Border Patrol. And he confirmed, yes, I had an interaction with the mayor, and here's my message for her.
The federal government is not leaving LA. I don't work for Karen Bass. The federal government doesn't work for Karen Bass. We're going to be here till that mission's accomplished, as I said, and better get used to us now, because this is going to be normal.
We don't work for you. Get used to it. This is the new normal. Listen, they wanted to have sanctuary city policies. They wanted to have their sanctuary state policies. This is what they demanded. They preened and stood themselves up on a pedestal to virtue signal about how welcoming they were to all of the illegal immigrants. And we find out that you're here illegally, even if you break the law, don't worry, we'll protect you. We won't hand you over to federal law enforcement. That's what they promised all of these criminal illegal immigrants. And boy, they're not stupid. They listened and they came there. This is what they wanted. They created this scenario. And if they're not going to cooperate, that means that the federal law enforcement officers need to go on their own to do this job. And it's funny, they all talked about this sweep of MacArthur Park yesterday, and they were decrying it, saying it was just political theater because they made no arrests. Well, what they did was a show of force to clear out the park so it could be safe again and send people scurrying back into their corners so that they could hide in the shadows like we're always told these innocent illegal immigrants are doing. They're just hiding in the shadows and wanting to live their lives. Funny, most people who work for a living don't spend all day in the park dealing drugs and menacing children when they're trying to use playground equipment. So if they were there, well, they must have been up to no good, frankly. But no arrests were made, and they're being criticized for the fact that no arrests were made. Of course, if they did make arrests, they'd be criticized for that. Oh, you're rounding people up and putting them in cages just because they're undocumented. So they're criticized for showing up in the park and not making arrests. But if they did make arrests, they'd be criticized for that too. It's almost like they just want to criticize and attack federal law enforcement officers because, well, that's exactly what they want to do. Funny thing, though, as these activities continue in Southern California, as the message is sent, as you just heard, is that we're going to be here until the mission is accomplished, so get used to it. There appears to be, anecdotally, possibly some residual effect of the Trump administration enforcing the immigration laws in Southern California. And let me show you some of that anecdotal evidence. This is a not uncommon sight on the 405 freeway. This is in West Los Angeles, just as the 405 sort of bends past Santa Monica and heads toward the Los Angeles International Airport. And no matter what big city you live in, generally speaking, during rush hour, you're going to see a lot of traffic in one direction or the other. But LA is very unique. I lived there for over 20 years. LA, at all hours of the night. This is obviously in the evening, probably 8, 8:30, 9 o'clock, not rush hour. You'll see this kind of traffic in all directions. It's just become commonplace. I can't tell you how many times I fly into LA. I go back there once every month or so because I got kids that live in Southern California. Fly into LAX, get there at 8:30, get on the freeway, and it looks like this on a Friday at 8:30. Not rush hour. That's your typical day. Well, funny thing happened yesterday at rush hour. Someone took a screenshot of the traffic map on their phone, and it looked like this. My friends, it never looks like this. Now, this could have been because it was the Monday after a holiday weekend. It could have been a bit of a one-off, I suppose. But the stories continued on social media of people who live in Southern California saying, yeah, I've never seen the traffic this light since the pandemic. One person shared the estimate on their Google Maps to drive from Newport Beach in Orange County up to Santa Monica, and it said it would just take them 50 minutes. That's unheard of. Even in the middle of the night, it's unheard of. And yet here we are. Is this all because of the immigration roundups? Not sure. Maybe. And one person anecdotally made a very important observation about this, saying, I live in LA. The commute from the Valley to Bel Air and Beverly Hills daily for the last month, traffic has been tolerable. I've been driving in LA for decades. It's win-win without the illegal immigrants in traffic. Only the COVID lockdowns were better for traffic. And furthermore, this person pointed out that this map is not just a map of the freeway system in LA. It's a map of the emergency rooms. It's a map of health insurance offices and the phones that you need to dial when you need your health insurance. How about car insurance, housing availability, public school quality? It's almost like the infrastructure in the city of Los Angeles, county of LA, and the state of California was designed for a certain population of taxpayers, citizens, and legal residents of the state. And when it got an influx of millions and millions of people who weren't supposed to be there, that the government never planned on being there, suddenly overtaxing all of those public facilities, like freeways, like schools, like hospitals, suddenly it became intolerable. It became unlivable. Now, who knows? Maybe this free traffic pattern that you're seeing now is because all the conservative Republicans have moved out of Southern California. That could be it. Could be. Or Maybe it's actually because the laws are being enforced. People are staying home or going home. And suddenly California seems a little more livable. That said, before we get all too crazy about it, our own Jennifer Van Laar, managing editor of Red State, part of the Town Hall Media family, sadly had to post a reality this morning. It was 7:30 during rush hour, and this is what traffic looked like. But I'll be honest with you. Having lived in Los Angeles for a couple of decades, having to deal with rush hour traffic, see where it says Whittier over there? Yeah, I used to live right over there. And I used to work right over where it says Beverly Hills. That was a long commute. Without traffic, it was about 45 to 50 minutes. With traffic, it could be 2 hours sometimes, crossing from West LA all the way through downtown into the northern Orange County, LA County, southern LA County area. I can tell you from my own experience, rush hour, 7:30 in the morning, this is better than usual. It's not great, but it's better than usual. There's definitely something afoot in Southern California, and it may be because our laws are being enforced. It may be because there's an effort for mass deportation. It may be because good people are just leaving the state because it's unlivable and intolerable. Either way, we know where Karen Bass, the mayor of Los Angeles, and Gavin Newsom, the governor of the state of California, stand on this issue. They're outraged that those laws are being enforced, and they're outraged that life is getting a little better in the Golden State. And that's why they want to take their policies national. Let's not forget, Karen Bass was on the short list to be Joe Biden's vice president. And now that Gavin Newsom's running for the big house, well, maybe Karen will make her way up to Sacramento and be the new governor. God help us all. You may have seen yesterday a story circulating around Washington, D.C. that exploded nationwide over a suggestion that President Trump might be entertaining the idea of a sweeping amnesty deal for illegal immigrants. It was an odd thing to hear. Our own Charlie Kirk, one of our partners there over on the Salem News Channel, he broke this story and talked about how he had been hearing it from some well-placed sources in D.C. And this sort of started the ball rolling. Here, take a look at what Charlie had to say yesterday.
$5 billion for ICE. We're going to talk more about the profundity and the importance of this bill, but it is of great urgent necessity that we cover what is coming next. And yes, we are going to talk about Epstein. We're also going to have live coverage from the awful and the unspeakable tragedy happening in Kerr County and near Hunt, Texas. Just a national tragedy with the flooding issue in Texas. But you would think that, hey, we get $175 billion for ICE. We're going to get mass deportations. We're going to be able to have now the largest deportation effort ever. Yes, in theory. But in practice, there's something else afoot. Literally, the day before President Donald Trump was signing the big, beautiful bill, I got a couple phone calls from people that you would call members of the ruling class. A lot of money and a lot of connections. They said, Charlie, isn't this amazing? We passed the big, beautiful bill. I said, oh, yes, sir. And they said, now we need mass amnesty. What? I said, we haven't even signed the bill yet. They said, yeah, you know, these deportations, we're going to lose the midterms because of the deportations. The people on the right, they'll understand. And we need to come to the middle, and we need to legalize the 25 million people here in this country. I was speechless. Because here I am actually thinking, a little naive, we're going to sign this big, beautiful bill, and we're actually going to get mass deportations uninterrupted from an asymmetrical attack. So we have somewhere between 20 to 50 million illegal aliens in this country. We don't actually know the numbers. These are all guesstimates. These are all just approximations. And there is a movement afoot as I am doing this broadcast. And this is bigger than anything with Epstein. This is bigger than anything with tax cuts. It is happening right now in Washington, D.C. And I can say this from firsthand experience, that people are pushing President Trump for amnesty. They are pushing him for mass legalization of illegals. Now, President Donald Trump, of course, would never push for amnesty, but President Donald Trump said something at a rally on July 3rd, and my phone lit up like you wouldn't imagine.
All right. So a couple of things about this, and we're going to break it down for you. It's odd. Everything about this is odd, and the way this story originated is odd in my book. And that's just me talking, my opinion. First of all, I don't watch Charlie's show. I don't watch many people's show very often because I don't want to influence how I do my show. But it's just an interesting monologue to deliver that he's referencing his notes on there, as you saw on his screen, where he talks about these very wealthy ruling class types that are pushing for amnesty. And I don't quite understand why he wouldn't name them. Right? What's the downside of naming them? I mean, if these are people who have political ideas that are contrary to what you believe are good for this country, and you think that this could be an incredibly damaging, destructive thing, which I'm pretty sure Charlie agrees with, what's the downside of telling us who these people are? They should be revealed. They should be outed. Their names should be named, right? And what Charlie is referring to in terms of what President Trump said the other day at a rally, this happened in Iowa. It was right after July 4th when he signed the bill. The next day, was it the next day? I think it was the next day. He went to Des Moines and he gave a speech. And he said this about farm workers specifically.
Tom Homan. And we're working on legislation right now. Susie, right? We're working on legislation right now where farmers, look, they know better. They work with them for years. You had cases where, not here, but just even over the years, where people have worked for on a farm for 14, 15 years, and they get thrown out pretty viciously. And we can't do it. We got to work with the farmers and people that have hotels and leisure properties too. We're going to work with them, and we're going to work very strong and smart. And we're going to put you in charge. We're going to make you responsible. And I think that that's going to make a lot of people happy. Now, serious radical right people, who I also happen to like a lot, they may not be quite as happy, but they'll understand, won't they? Do you think so? Madam Secretary, look at you with a white hat on. Do you think they'll understand that? You're the one that brought this whole situation up.
All right. Serious right-wing radical people. I'd love to know who he's talking about exactly with that. Again, name names, President Trump. Who do you think is a serious right-wing radical person? He's talking to Madam Secretary. Madam Secretary would be the Secretary of Agriculture. That would be Secretary Rollins. And he mentioned Susie. Susie, of course, Susie Wiles is Chief of Staff, where they're talking about working on legislation that would help long-term farm workers, as he put it here, 14, 15 years, who are now potentially being swept up and deported, which again is a curious thing too, because we have a temporary farmer visa program in this country. It's called the H-2A visa. It's for seasonal temporary farm workers. Whenever they say, oh, your crops are going to rot in the ground because no one will be there to pick them. No, we have a program right now for workers to come in and harvest crops for the agriculture industry. And they can come here legally as temporary workers and seasonal workers, then go back home. It's actually a very robust program. Hundreds of thousands utilize it legally, and there's no cap on it. You can bring in as many as you want. They just can't stay for more than a year, and they got to go home. That's all. And then they can come back. And there were many different industries that utilize this. Where I live off the Chesapeake Bay in Washington, D.C., we're known for our blue crabs in Maryland, right? Best crab cakes you're ever going to have. And there are women who come from third world nations in Latin America who, for some reason, through generations, specialize in harvesting the meat from crabs. They're great at it. They're faster than anybody else you're ever going to find. In the crabbing industry in the Chesapeake Bay region, Virginia and Maryland, they import these agriculture workers on H-2A visas every year because it's a seasonal job when the crabs are ripe for the picking. And these women come in on their visas legally. They pick the meat off the crabs that become your crab cakes, and then they go home, and everybody's happy. So what is it we're talking about here exactly? Well, today at a big announcement revealing that we are going to shut down Chinese ownership of farmlands in America, Secretary Rollins addressed this issue. It started with Charlie Kirk yesterday, as you just saw, and within 24 hours, a cabinet secretary had to address it head on. That's how big this story got so quickly. And here she is.
There will be no amnesty. The mass deportations continue, but in a strategic way, and we move the workforce towards automation and 100% American participation, which again, with 34 million people, able-bodied adults on Medicaid, we should be able to do that fairly quickly. Thank you.
There you go. There will be no amnesty. The mass deportations will continue. That from your Secretary of Agriculture. Now, let's break down specifically what we're talking about here in terms of the H-2A visa program. And this is all public information. You can find it on the Department of Agriculture's website. You can find it through your favorite ChatGPT or Grok search engine or AI. It's very simple. I found it and verified all this information myself. H-2A farm worker visa program, a legal permit to work farms as a foreign laborer. It takes about 8 to 12 weeks to get the work permit, and your employer, the farm, will be able to go through that process. There's no cap. It's based on employer demand. So if a farmer says, I need 1,000 people from a foreign land to come in here so that my crops don't rot in the ground, because that's what Democrats tell you, we need our slave labor to come in and do this, they can bring in as many people as they want. It costs about $200 per employee, and that's reimbursed, by the way, in the first paycheck. That's the law. Go check it out in the Department of Agriculture. Nearly 400,000 workers came in legally under that program last year. The crops don't rot in the ground. It's not going to happen. It was always a lie. So what are we talking about with employees who are sitting there who have been here for 14, 15 years? See, that's the problem. They came in here on an H-2A, and then they never went home. They overstayed that legal visa that we've opened up for them so that they can come in, but they've never left. So is it bad that they're facing deportation? I mean, I suppose on a personal level for them it is. You know what else is bad? That they exploited our legal system and broke the law and continue to break the law year after year after year. That the farm was able to exploit them year after year after year. If an agricultural concern or farming industry participant is in some way circumventing the existing legal H-2A visa program, it's because they're either lazy or they're greedy, or they want to exploit people outside of the legal protections that they would get from the federal government. But it's not your fault. It's not our fault. It's not the federal government's fault. And if there's a problem with the program, go ahead and change it. But the uproar over even the suggestion that the president would grant amnesty, as Charlie floated on his program at Salem News Channel yesterday, it hit hard across the board. Even this guy was a little exercised about it. Just an hour ago, he hit it straight on, and he seemed to confirm that these unnamed people in Washington, D.C. are pushing for this.
This is why we're going to go after we are going after the H-1B programs. Now, she said later, Labor Secretary is working on some H-2A, because this was the rumor, this is when people's heads were blown up. And I'm not saying they weren't thinking about doing it, but they're going to slide an amnesty into an executive order around H-2As. That is not, or at least right now, it's not happening. She said, no way, no amnesty. Brooke Rollins, Secretary of Agriculture, couldn't be more adamant about that. Strategic deportations, mass deportations. We'll break that down. Mass deportations now, amnesty never. Let me repeat the mantra. Mass deportations now, amnesty never.
I do like hearing my friend John Kahn's song playing in the background there. So he just repeated it as well. He just said, I'm not saying they didn't try to get it in there, but it looks like it's off the table for now. Who's they? Tell us who they is. Why are you only telling us half the story? If you know who they are, then tell us so we know who we're talking about. It's frustrating. As a consumer of the news, it's frustrating, let alone someone who also relays and tries to expand and explain the news to you. That's why I like this guy so much. Both of these guys, in fact, Jesse Waters and Stephen Miller. Stephen Miller was on last night with all of these rumors swirling about Amnesty and all of the powerful political entities that appear to be trying to push and pull and tug and rip apart what is now a very effective program. He also spoke on the horrific stories. We covered one of them yesterday as we had ICE agents who were shot at by a gunman in McLean, Texas. And then later in the day yesterday, we learned of a ambush plot with the arrests of 11 co-conspirators, all trying to set up and assassinate ICE agents, all a direct result of the rhetoric we're hearing from the left. Stephen Miller hit all of it head on and very well, as usual.
Why, Jesse? What is this all about? This is the central struggle in the West. The Democrat Party's objective is to flood the West with millions upon millions of illegals from the developing world, from the poor nations of the world, the failed states of the world, the collapsing states of the world, believing that in so doing, they will collapse the West. They will collapse the middle class. They will collapse the population that has lived here before the migrants came. And in so doing, they think in the rubble of that, they can rule. They can sit on top of the pile of ashes. Ask yourself this: why is it that Democrats are so insistent that unlimited numbers of illegals from countries that are incapable of managing their own affairs come here? Countries like Somalia, countries like Haiti, countries that have no history of successful self-government, and they want unlimited numbers of illegals from those countries and refugees from those countries to come here with no chance at the pace, the scale, the scope of arrivals at being able to assimilate and integrate into the American way of life. What has it done to our schools? What has it done to our hospitals? What has it done to just traffic in our cities? Every issue that affects our quality of life, Jesse, public safety, drugs, crime, education, healthcare, waiting in the emergency room, are all exacerbated, worsened, and undermined by mass illegal immigration. ICE officers are heroes, and they need the support of the American people. President Trump is liberating our towns, just as he was promised, just as the American people overwhelmingly voted to give him a mandate to do just 5 months ago.
Yeah, and I would add to that list of countries that are dysfunctional. What did he say? Haiti and Somalia. How about Uganda as well? And it's funny, Somalia and Uganda have two very high-profile refugees. One of them a sitting congresswoman for the Democrats. The other one, the nominee for mayor of New York for the Democrats. They come here through our Amnesty program. They come from their war-savaged, war-torn, poverty-stricken nations, and they seek a better life. And suddenly, within a couple of years, they're holding elected office and they're lecturing us about how America has to be restructured, you know, more in keeping with the country they came from. What the hell are you doing here then? Miller's absolutely right about that. If you thought that the 2024 presidential election was going to be the end of this conversation, if you thought that Trump enforcing our immigration laws and our border security in such a robust fashion in the first few months, shutting down illegal border crossings, that was going to be the end of this, if you thought that passing the reconciliation package that increased funding for the border security as well as for deportations was going to be the end of this, you're wrong. This is going to be a daily fight. It's never over because the political left never gives up. And understand something, the fight doesn't just take place in cities like Los Angeles and places like MacArthur Park or in legislative bodies in Washington, D.C. The fight takes place in your culture. Your fight takes place in your local movie theater. They want to inject their political, cultural narrative into everything that you do. Perfect case in point is the big Superman movie that's opening this week. James Gunn, the guy who runs the DC comic book studio venture, is the director of that film. And he specifically has framed this movie in the context of Superman being an immigrant to this nation.
It is exactly what the movie is about. I think that, like, we support our people, you know, we love our immigrants. We love, yes, Superman is an immigrant, and yes, the people that we support in this country are immigrants. And if you don't like that, then you're not American.
If you don't agree with me politically, you're not American. If you don't like that, by the way, we love immigrants. We have to say it all the time. We just don't like the ones who break our laws as their first move in this country. By the way, Superman, I mean, I guess he's an immigrant. I mean, is it okay to call him an alien? Because I know that that term is now politically incorrect. I guess he was an undocumented superhero, but he was literally an alien from another country. By the way, James, he was adopted by an all-American family who raised him in Kansas and taught him values and principles, truth, justice, and the American way, by the way, something that this guy left out of his new Superman movie. I love that he's lecturing us all about what it is to be an American, and yet he left that out of the descriptor of Superman in this film, you know, truth, justice, and the American way. Now it's truth, justice, and, you know, whatever the UN comes up with today or something like that. By the way, by the same warped analogy, sure, Superman's an immigrant. You know who else was an immigrant? General Zod. He was also an immigrant. He came here to destroy the place. Are we supposed to welcome him too? Is it un-American to oppose General Zod, James Gunn? Oh, God. Am I now revealing myself to be the comic book nerd that I am? Let's move on from Gunn and move on to one of the actors in the film. This is Nathan Fillion. He also responded to the controversy over Superman being an immigrant.
James has said that Superman is an immigrant story, that it is political. MAGA today was getting a little upset that he called Superman an immigrant. I wanted to get your reaction.
Somebody needs a hug. It's just a movie, guys. It's just a movie.
Well, if it's just a movie, then why don't you just leave your politics out of it? I love that they go out of their way to make a movie that should just be a movie, that should just be about superheroes and action and fun and special effects and CGI. By the way, why do we need another Superman movie? Is it me? Or do they make a Superman or a Batman movie like every 4 years? Now we're really going to tell the origin story of this DC superhero. No, we already saw that. If I have to see that little kid's parents get shot in an alley in Gotham City one more time, I'm going to lose it. Enough with the Batman movies. And please don't stand there and lecture me and tell me that it's just a movie. Relax, check your brain at the door, when you're going out of your way to tell me that you are making a political movie, not a superhero movie. I can check my brain at the door and enjoy the entertainment of it and oversee your obvious heavy-handed politics. But don't insult my intelligence when you actually tell me that it's heavy-handed politics and then condescend and patronize me by saying, hey, it's just a movie, everybody. By the way, one other thing. There's a real villain in this entire Superman scenario that we're finishing up with here. And it's actually not James Gunn, the director, and it's not this guy, the actor. It's that idiot with the bow tie for Variety. You heard how he just asked that question. And lost in the shuffle here, excuse me, was another time James Gunn was asked the same question here. Look at this time. And look at how he tries to deflect the narrative that this Variety reporter is trying to force into the conversation.
You said it's an immigrant story. It's a political movie. MAGA today is going nuts. What do you have to say to MAGA?
Before he even answers that, what the hell is that question? This is a reporter for Variety. MAGA's going nuts. No, MAGA didn't go nuts. MAGA's going nuts now. But this is this Variety reporter. Lispy Variety reporter with a bow tie who decides to confront all of these people on the red carpet and start screaming, MAGA's going nuts, MAGA's going nuts. How do you respond? How do you respond? Thinking the Variety's going to give him ink, and Variety does, in fact, give him ink. But look at how he tries to deflect the question here before it gets pressed.
I don't have anything. I think this movie's for everybody. I don't have anything to say to anybody. Like I'm not here to judge people, you know.
You know, I think this is a movie about kindness, and I think that's something everyone can relate to.
Okay, I'll accept that. Of course, now I don't believe you, but I'll accept it. So there it is. I mean, whether there's a push for amnesty or not, I couldn't tell you. It appears that there was, because the Secretary of Agriculture addressed it today and said, no, it's not going to happen. So if it's not going to happen, I guess that there was some discussion that it might happen. But you've got influential people who are hearing from very powerful interests that there is still a push for it, and yet we don't know who they are. But as of now, the only push for amnesty and the only push for radical immigration policies are coming from the creators of the Superman movie, which thankfully has no real impact as long as you do what I think you're going to do, which is not go see it. Hey, hey, remember Kami Mamdani? That's Zohran, by the way, to you, 33 years old, and he's wanting to be the mayor of New York, and he's got some real radical stuff in his background that goes well beyond just his, communist links. In fact, there's somebody who's now been reported to be a member of his campaign staff who had an unbelievable confrontation, like a bone-chilling, frightening confrontation with police officers during one of their pro-Hamas marches. We've got the video of it, and we're going to show it to you in a second. But first, the latest scandal about this guy, not that it's going to matter at all in New York. I mean, he's got the D after his name. He wants government control of the economy, and he's promising free stuff. So, of course, he's going to win. But the latest scandal apparently is that when he applied for college at Columbia, he claimed he was black. Now, a lot of people are saying, oh, he, said he was African-American and he was born in Uganda, so that means he is African. No. Let me be clear. He said he was black. The category on the form to fill out was black/African-American. It's clear what that category meant. And, this whole African-American thing, we used to joke around about how Elon Musk was African-American, right? Because he's from South Africa. But African-American is a very specific term that was created by Jesse Jackson back in the late 80s, early 90s, because he didn't think that black people in this country should just be defined by the color of their skin, by their pigmentation, that it perpetuated the importance of skin color. This was back in the good old days. See, now today's radical left-wing people, they think that your skin color is, in fact, the most important thing. But back in my time, back in the 90s, when the Generation X post-Martin Luther King era, we actually believed that the color of your skin was not supposed to be important. So Jesse Jackson had this big idea. It's like, stop calling us black because that defines us by our skin color. Call us African-American, just like Italian Americans, just like Jewish Americans, just like British Americans, Mexican Americans. You don't define them by their skin color, so stop doing it to us. We're African-American. But let me be clear. We know what African-American means. African-American means a black person in America. Like when you see a black actor from England, Idris Elba, for instance, you don't refer to him as an African-American. You know why? Because he's not American. He's British. And in the UK, they don't refer to them as African English. They're black. It's a black person, just like I'm a white person, right? So when Zohran Mamdani, 5 years ago, checked off a box on his application for college, and he called himself Black African-American, he was gaming the system. Make no mistake. And, in fact, we have a picture of his first day at college when he appeared for his freshman class. And that's not true, but that was a great movie. You should see it. It was ahead of its time. The fact of the matter is the New York Times had the scoop on this story. Mamdani identified as Asian and African-American on college application. That's not entirely true. It was black/African-American. You heard it here. The New York Times did this whole expose on this. He says he doesn't consider himself black, but said the application didn't allow for the complexity of his background. What complexity? both of his parents are of Indian descent. And if there isn't a box that says Indian, then yes, you click Asian, even though India is the subcontinent. That's how things are done here in America. I know that you're a newbie here in our country. What do you mean the complexity? Well, you know, my parents are Indian ethnically, but I was born in Uganda. So what? This is supposed to be a racial identifier, not what country you were born in, right? It's ridiculous. All right. So the New York Times public editor apparently had to do a whole mea culpa explanation apology for even running this story. That's right. The New York Times got wind of a blockbuster story about a guy running for mayor of New York where he lied on his college application and misappropriated a racial identity for his own purposes, probably, we believe, so that it might help him get admitted. We'll dive into that in a second. And the New York Times actually had to apologize for it, for doing their job. The New York Times stumbles accidentally into a rare case of actual journalism, and now they have to apologize. Patrick Healy, the assistant managing editor for Standards and Trust, which, by the way, breaking news, the New York Times actually has standards and trust. Received reader feedback regarding our reporting on Zohran Mamdani's 2009 application to Colombia. To provide context on how the reporting came together, I wanted to share the information. So he goes through this multi-post mea culpa on X. Look at this. We're so sorry that we did this. We felt like we had to do it. And by the way, they also point out that they were about to get scooped. And that's why they ran with the story. Who was going to scoop them? The New York Post, the Washington Post, maybe ABC News? No, you're going to love this. Times pushed ahead to avoid being scooped on Mamdani Colombia story, reveals media editor at Semaphore. Who was going to scoop them? Anti-woke activist applauds his friends at the New York Times for Zohran Mamdani college application scoop. Anti-woke activists? Wait, what are you talking about? They were going to get scooped by an activist? New York Times published Mamdani college application story to avoid being scooped by Chris Rufo. Yes, Christopher Rufo. They were afraid of getting scooped by Chris Rufo, so they ran with the story. How gloriously delicious is this? New York Times rushed out story on Mamdani claiming to be black on Columbia application over fears it would be scooped by Christopher Rufo. The New York Times has a budget of probably $1 billion. Christopher Rufo is a guy in his living room with a laptop. This is exquisite. It's fantastic. It's perfect. By the way, Chris Rufo did finally run with the story on his Substack. And I want to point you to one particularly important part right here. I've obtained Mamdani's full Columbia application, which might help unravel his mystery. According to the materials, Mamdani scored a 2140 out of 2400 on the SAT. At the time, this was below the median SAT score for admitted students at Columbia, and given the prevailing distribution by race, well below the median SAT score for Asian students, but likely above the median SAT score for Black students, hence the advantage of marking Black. In other words, he might not have gotten in if he was just judged on the color of, or excuse me, on the content of his character and the actual content of his intellectual acumen. But when you throw the color of his skin in the mix, he might have a shot. Rufo goes on to explain, though, strangely, that despite having a father on the faculty and marking Black on his application, Columbia still rejected Mamdani. Two plausible theories. First, in general, Columbia is a highly competitive university with an admissions rate of less than 10%, which means that many candidates around the median will not make the cut. Second, there's a possibility that Mamdani's box-checking gambit backfired. Full application includes the name and contact information for his father, Mahmoud Mamdani, and his mother, Mira Nair, both of whom are public figures and neither of whom is Black. In other words, he probably didn't get in because they saw through it and said, dude, you're not Black. We're probably going to give this slot to, I don't know, a Black person. Now, for those of you who are saying this is splitting hairs and this is, being, too pedantic. And after all, he was born in Africa. Well, it's interesting that there's sort of an unwritten rule and an understanding amongst our left-wing intellectual elites that if you're not actually racially black, even if you were born in Africa, that would be unfair and it would be wrong to take a slot that was set aside for somebody who was in fact black and has lived the black American experience. Again, let's be clear here. Even if you want to grant him some grace and say, well, African American, I mean, he was born in Africa. Number one, he wasn't an American citizen yet. So by definition, he was not African American, number one. And number two, the whole idea of the slot being checked off on the racial page of a college application is to make sure that you have the racial makeup that the college is trying to achieve. Now, you may not like that. I don't like it either. But if you're a left-wing, radical, liberal, progressive who lives and dies on identity politics like Zohran Mamdani and those who support him, you should be offended by this. Just like Elizabeth Warren, the Native American from Oklahoma. But don't take my word for it. I have it from very important high-level authority here on all things radical left-wing identity politics, that it's just not cool to do this sort of thing. I have it from this guy, Zohran Mamdani himself.
What are you? Are you Arab, Indian? What are you? You look ambiguous. You look weird. You look weird. What the fuck are you?
I'm an Indian, Ugandan, New York.
Okay, so you're African American. So would you claim the African American status like Elon Musk?
No, I would not.
Why not? You're African, but you're African, right? I knew you grew up there. Your middle name is Kwame.
I am. I'm proud to be Ugandan.
Okay.
But I think that
what are you?
There you go. I would never claim to be African American. That would be misleading, says Zohran Mamdani, the man who claimed to be African American. As my friend Chris Plant often says, were it not for double standards, the left would have no standards at all. Which brings us to the person purportedly to be an intern on Mamdani's campaign staff. This person wearing the red and white checkered Italian restaurant tablecloth on her head. Oh, I'm sorry. That's not what it is. Apparently it's something else. Screaming at police officers during one of the pro-Hamas protests, specifically singling out police officers with Arabic-sounding names. Watch this. This is bone-chilling. And as happy-go-lucky and joyful and positive and fun Zohran Mamdani seems to be with his really quirky TikTok videos, and he's always got a smile on his face. That's a charming smile. He's really charming when he's taking all of your money and centralizing all parts of our economy under the government control. But boy, he's charming. And for people who like that and say, you know what, he's just nice. I like him. I want to vote for him because, Eric Adams isn't nice and Andrew Cuomo isn't nice. And Curtis Sliwa, he wears a red beret. I don't like that. So this guy's nice. He makes me feel good. Just understand, that's fine. Go ahead. But you're really voting for this woman. You're voting for her, because this is who he's going to fill his staff with in New York City.
We need the badges of the pigs. We need the badges of the pigs. To the Rahmans and the Mohammeds. To the Rahmans and the Mohammeds. To the Alis and the Abdullahs. To the Alis and the Abdullahs. To the Rafids. To the Rafids. To the Rafids. To the Rafids. To the pigs. Who can call themselves by the name of Islam? Who can call themselves by the name of Islam? To the Mohammeds! To the Mohammeds! Put some respect on that name! 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 La ilaha illallah! La ilaha illallah! Shahid Habib Allah!
I had to tell you something. Officer Rafid deserves a raise. I don't know how he kept his cool there. And it was kind of awesome how his brother police officer relieved him and took his place there after he had to endure that. The disrespect, the vitriol, the vile, venomous blood-curdling behavior of these people. And as I said, I just want to point out from Eyal Yacobi, who's been covering this race and actually really hitting a lot of good stories out of New York. According to his reporting, that Islamist screaming at a Muslim New York police officer for stopping rioters from burning down New York has been revealed as an intern in for Zohran Mamdani. But of course, listen, that's just the intern. Zohran Mamdani himself, he has nothing but respect for all the people who live in New York, especially his Jewish neighbors, right? Right. Yeah, he's charming with all those really smiley, fun, wacky videos, isn't he? Seems kind of racist, especially connected directly to a religious holiday and observance, doesn't it? But you know what? Listen, that's just Zohran Mamdani, just having fun, doing a skit, doing a funny video. Nothing serious there. Fine. Let's take a look at who raised him. His dad, professor at Columbia. What does Mr. Mamdani have to say for himself about world affairs?
The Nazi political project was shared by the Allies. And that political project was to turn Germany into a pure nation rid of its minorities. When the Allies defeated the Nazis and went into Eastern Europe, they began to create pure nations, to ethnically cleanse Eastern Europe of Germans, move them back into Germany. One crime doesn't wipe out another. A Christian nation state decides to cleanse it of all religious minorities, Jews and Muslims in particular, and at the same time launches a colonization experiment, the discovery of the Americas. I argue that nationalism and colonialism are not two different things. America is the genesis of what we call settler colonialism. And the American model was exported all around the world. In America, you have two kinds of minorities that have run the course of the history of the modern American state. The American Indian and the African American. Each has a different significance for our contemporary era. The American Indians were the people on that land when the settlers conquered it. First, they tried to eliminate as many Indians as possible. This was the first recorded genocide in modern history. Then, with the Civil War, Abraham Lincoln generalized the solution of reservations. They herded American Indians into separate territories. For the Nazis, this was the inspiration. Hitler realized two things. One, that genocide was doable. It is possible to do genocide. That's what Hitler realized. Second thing Hitler realized is that you don't have to have a common citizenship. You can differentiate between people. The Nuremberg laws were patterned after American laws. Anyway, the
So let's get this straight. The Allies and the Nazis really kind of had the same plan in Europe, not too big a difference, really. And Hitler was motivated and inspired by Abraham Lincoln. And then he talks about minorities and various levels of citizenship. And by the way, dude is Indian ethnically originally, came from India. He might want to take a look at his own country of origin with regard to, you know, the caste system and racial discrimination and how people are treated. Because trust me, you didn't learn that from the Europeans, pal. I don't know what's more frightening, that this is the guy who raised and taught the dude who's on the verge of being the mayor of New York City and is the shining star of the Democrat Party right now, or the fact that this guy is still a professor in good standing at Columbia University and teaching roomfuls of students on a daily basis, that this is considered intellectualism and the real truth. This tells you what's going on right now in America's universities. Oh, but that's not fair. That's the guy's dad. You can't hold him responsible for the views of his dad. What does he believe?
Because that is the amount of money that will solve everything. It comes out of an understanding that policing is something that does not create safety. And what we need to do is reinvest into things that are proven indicators and creators of safety. And the city council budget did not do that. And it's just...
Policing doesn't create safety. You want to make New York safer, policing is not the solution. You want to move beyond that old paradigm. I mean, this is considered intellectual thought and really big ideas right now in the political left, sadly. Let's have one more here. Hang on. Apparently, J.D. Vance just moments ago spoke out himself about Mr. Mamdani. Let's take a look.
And that brings me back finally to the next likely mayor of New York. Today is July 5th, 2025, which means, as all of you know, that yesterday we celebrated the 249th anniversary of the birth of our nation.
Okay, obviously this was not moments ago, but I just got the link moments ago. That's why I thought it was a new breaking video. This was from this weekend.
Now, the person who wishes to lead our largest city had, according to multiple media reports, never once publicly mentioned America's Independence Day in earnest. But when he did so this year, this is what he said, and this is an actual quote. Quote, "America is beautiful, contradictory, unfinished. I am proud of our country even as we constantly strive to make it better." End quote. There is no gratitude in those words. No sense of owing something to this land and the people who turned its wilderness into the most powerful nation on earth. Zohran Mamdani's father fled Uganda when the tyrant Idi Amin decided to ethnically cleanse his nation's Indian population. Mamdani's family fled violent racial hatred, only for him to come to this country, a country built by people he never knew, overflowing with generosity to his family, offering a haven from the kind of violent ethnic conflict that is commonplace in world history, but it is not commonplace here. And he dares, on our 249th anniversary, to congratulate it by paying homage to its incompleteness and to its, as he calls it, contradiction. I wonder, has he ever read the letters from boy soldiers in the Union Army to parents and sweethearts that they'd never see again? Has he ever visited the gravesite of a loved one who gave their life to build the kind of society where his family could escape racial theft and racial violence? Has he ever looked in the mirror and recognized that he might not be alive were it not for the generosity of a country he dares to insult on its most sacred day? Who the hell does he think that he is?
I'm glad we're saying it. I wish some of the Democrats would say it. It's funny. People are still wondering if Andrew Cuomo is really going to run in earnest since he's been humiliated by his own party. He is on the ticket and he might run. And of course, Eric Adams is trying valiantly, but he's been politically damaged quite a bit. And I don't know if he has a chance. And Curtis Lee was a nice guy. I wish him luck, but I don't know if any Republican at this point can win in New York. Possibly, maybe. It depends. Those three need to coalesce around one candidate. It would be great, really great, if a Democrat like Andrew Cuomo actually went after Zohran Mamdani the way you just saw J.D. Vance do it. It would be great if people in that city actually spoke out and said, no, we're not this bad. In fact, we're a hell of a lot better than this, and we can do better, and we must do better. Sadly, I don't know if any Democrat is willing to do that right now because they're terrified. They're terrified of their own base. They're terrified of the beast that they have created. They're terrified of being on the wrong side of Bernie and AOC and Ilhan and Zohran, and where the real power center is for what used to be a great, noble American institution. I don't know what it's become. I know what it used to be. I disagreed with it, but I never thought it wanted our destruction the way it wants it now. And thank you all for watching today. I appreciate it. Kevin, I'm sorry for getting that wrong on the Vance clip.
You know, we can both take some responsibility for that.
Can we both? Should I read the note you gave me when you gave me the link?
Maybe we should just go to the super chats.
Okay, what super chats have we got? Oh, Angela with a $5 super chat. Bass the Jackass and the rest of the Democrats are exactly why ICE and law enforcement are being ambushed by Antifa and other criminals. Yeah, it's amazing that all that went down yesterday, and they still are doubling down and tripling down and calling them, radical military and fascists and Nazis. They won't be happy until somebody murders an ICE agent. God forbid. God forbid. Thank you, Angela. Church Talk Unlimited with James Paul Barry, a $2 super chat. Let's get Newsom and Bass to leave. That would be fantastic. They need to be defeated. We need to defeat them. We need to defeat their ideas. Thank you, Church Talk Unlimited with James Paul Barry. Angela, $2 super chat. Wish they supported babies like they do illegals. Yeah, it is amazing where the passion comes from on that side of the equation. It's just a movie I will not see. Thank you, Angela, for that. Oh, am I wrong? Am I being an old fuddy-duddy by and it's funny, I just had this debate with somebody about politics and movies, and the fact is, I've just reached a point where I see when they're trying to inject politics into a movie, and if it's still well done and it's a good movie, I can still enjoy it and I get some entertainment. But when they come right out and say, we've made this Superman movie, but it's really to be against the Republican conservative movement in America. Funny, I don't really want to pay I don't care how great the special effects are. I'm not going to go out of my way to see it. I know I'm silly that way. Richard Murray with a $10 super chat. Dictators ride to and fro upon tigers from which they dare not dismount. Winston the Bulldog Churchill. That's a great quote. Thank you, Richard. Appreciate it. Appreciate all of you watching. We'll be back tomorrow. Same time, same place. In the meantime, my name is Larry O'Connor, and you can call me Larry.